So I thought, looking back, I had the chance to meet and interact with Donald K. Donald on many, many occasions. He was, that idea, and I posted this on the Facebook announcement yesterday by Peter Starr, who was working as his partner. He was, and people say this, and I think it's so true, he was a larger-than-life personality. He really was. And then you consider some of the things going on in the background, right? You'd see him at concerts all the time. He was the guy. Rob Braide is on the line. Rob, are you there?
I am, Aaron. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Hang on. I'm just going to turn down my radio. Hey, Google, stop. Well, no, listen, Aaron, at my age, it's the only thing I've got left to boss around.
So listen, for folks who don't know, Rob Braide worked in the radio business in the city for many, many years. He was my boss at one point many years ago as well when I was over at Show'em. So, Rob, you had a chance from the administrative side to work with Donald pretty closely, right? Anytime a show came to town, it was pretty much Show'em promoting the show. Tell us a little, when you read yesterday that he had passed and how you reacted to that.
Well, Deke was a great friend, a very dear friend, and obviously a lot of people are mourning his passing. Aaron, I've got something I think that most of your listeners don't know. It's an origin story of Donald K. Donald Productions. If you want me to share
Absolutely,
this with
sure.
you. I think a lot of people listening to us today remember Ted Blackman, and Ted was the crusty bon vivant sportscaster who went down in flames many, many years ago, but he was another dear friend. And when I was managing CJAD, did a lot of work with Vulcan and Blackman and Sinclair and that gang. So anyway, going back to the 60s, which even predates you and I, which is difficult, Ted Blackman was running sock hops and, promoting the occasional band. And I don't know whether the Haunted and JB and the Playboys and that kind of gang was in there, but there were a lot of bands playing Beatles stuff back in the 60s. So anyway, he was doing pretty well, and Donald K. Donald wanted to get into that kind of business. He was fascinated by it, something he always wanted to do. Well, Ted was a golfer, and he had a really, really great set of golf clubs. So guess what? Ted Blackman traded his golf clubs for Donald K. Donald's, or gave Donald K. Donald. Donald K. Donald gave Ted Blackman his golf clubs for his for his business. So Ted stopped doing the concert promotion business and took up golf
in exchange for golf clubs.
Yeah, so Donald got Ted's concert business for a set of golf clubs. So that's
a great story.
Yeah, that's not many. No, listen, he had a huge heart. A lot of people said that Donald would fight you for the last penny on a deal, but he'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it.
So, as I said, dealing with him from the perspective of someone at a radio station at the time, and, I know you were at CJAD before that, as I mentioned, at Show'em as well. Was he a hard guy to drive a bargain with? Because I remember Donald always, he never gave up. I think that's the one thing. Even if it came to just selling extra tickets to his show at the last minute, he was always pushing.
Well, Donald, I was actually the guy who gave you your first morning show at CKGM, so I was a GM as well. I might have been that program director he was yelling at. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I don't think so. I remember that, though.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. So anyway, Donald and I would speak almost every day when I was at Show'em because he would call and pick my brain about who we should be bringing into town.
Right.
Because we did a lot of research, and I spent a lot of time at Sam the Record Man and, the various retail places, watching people, how they were buying, what they were listening to. And Donald would sort of use me as a research source. And so kind of in return for that, we always got Show'em Presents, and Show'em Presents is their name here. And it came to pass one day that Donald called me up, and Rod Stewart was coming to town. He said, "Rob, I got some bad news for you." I said, "What?" He said, we were pretty close pals at that point. He said, "Rod Stewart's coming to town, and there's a new thing in the music business called these corporations are trying to hitch their wagons to celebrities, and Sony is sponsoring Rod Stewart's North American tour, so it's going to be Sony presents Rod Stewart." Well, of course, I lost my business, and I was very upset, and he and I didn't speak for quite a while after that.
Oh,
and it was a real falling out. But of course, Donald was right, and it was the beginning of corporations hitching their wagons,
right,
as I said,
right.
Celebrities, and Donald was prescient. He always knew what was coming next. And, of course, we kissed and made up afterwards. Another thing that a lot of people may not remember is that Donald was a major driving force behind the Canadian music scene. With Terry Flood, his partner in Aquarius Music, and Keith Brown, who ran the label, ipso facto. They brought Corey Hart into the marketplace. They brought April Wine into the marketplace. Donald was very involved in Celine's movement out of Quebec into America and around the world. And he had a remarkable ability to develop a circle of employees who became their tight friends. I mean, the Fighting Brunetta sisters. You mentioned
Sylvie and Celine, right? Yeah.
Yes, Sylvie and Celine and their other sisters and just so many wonderful people that he worked them hard. He was a taskmaster, but Lisa Lee, another one, who
Sure.
you know as well as I do, and Lisa still. I just saw her at backstage with Chris de Burgh a couple of weeks ago at the PDA, and Lisa's still very, very active. And it all started up with Donald. So he was larger than life. He seeded a great deal of the industry. He walked into a room and he just owned the room. But I'll tell you what, it didn't matter who you were, where you came from, whether you were Bono or Mick Jagger. I saw him talking to Mick Jagger or Bono one day at the Forum, I believe it was, and 20 minutes later, you're sitting down talking to the guy selling the hot dogs at the Forum, just chewing, just talking about what was going on in the world.
It's funny as you say that. I remember all these stories. I had a music magazine at the time in the late 70s, and we used to put, ads in the back, and I would see Donald at the Forum or whatever. But I remember years later, when I was working with Tasso, it was at CFCF, and we used to have Donald come on the air because he was such a character, and Donald would go and sell a show. And one of the things he eventually got into doing was bringing wrestling to Montreal, right?
That's
so
right.
I remember I was doing the interview, and of course by then a lot of us were just getting into wrestling and thinking this stuff looks so fake. And I was wondering whether I should ask Donald that or not. And I suggested, some people have said it's fake or whatever. And Donald, without missing a beat, referred to wrestling as improvisational athletic theater. I thought that was the best thing I had ever heard anyone describe wrestling at. That was the kind of guy he was. And for many years, my buddy Tasso did a terrific Donald imitation, which always began with, "Hey, Aaron Ron, how you doing?" Like that, right? Because that was Donald. So, yeah, he is going to be missed.
He never lost an opportunity to sell a ticket.
No, he didn't.
Didn't matter.
That is the truth.
Didn't matter whether or not you got him on to talk about anything in the world. He
squeezed that in at the end. Absolutely.
For Rod Stewart.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much. I appreciate you walking us down memory lane and remembering.
Always a pleasure. God bless you, Donald. And just a quick mention: Patty Ann Tarleton, his niece, is still in the business, and she's now the CEO of Live Nation Western Canada, and is doing kind of the same thing that Donald started out doing. So anyway, it's great hearing your voice. Aaron, I love your show. I listen to it all the time.
Rob, thank you. I really appreciate that. Rob Braide, a very close friend and someone who worked in the business with Donald for many, many years. And yes, was one of my first bosses in this business way, way, way back. He mentioned Celine. Go ahead and bring this up for a second, Brian. There's a Donald K. Donald tribute page on Facebook. It goes back to 1999. Take a look. This is actually Celine Dion.
Most people were really sorry to hear that you had retired from showbiz and are feeling sad as they're going to miss you. I, on the other hand, was rather happy to hear that you would be no longer around, backstage stealing food from my dressing room.
Donald was a big guy, and that's obviously Celine. And at the end, she says, "I'm kidding, I love you." And because Donald decided to go give up the business, right, for a while, and then slowly he would do a show here and there, but not to the same level he did when he was kind of the king of promotion in the city. Every big band that ever came here, with all due respect to Reuben Fogel and Sam Gesser, Donald K. Donald involved in those since the beginning. So yeah, sad news to find out he has passed at the age of 82.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio, hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll. One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all. Bryan Adams Radio. I'm coming back to you. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Everybody